In the 1930s, events throughout the world led to conditions that started World War II. High unemployment, desperation, and feelings of betrayal led to the rise of totalitarian dictators. Fascist dictators Mussolini and Hitler threatened to conquer new territories for Italy and Germany. Extreme nationalism and a need for raw materials led to a desire to expand in Japan under Hideki Tojo. Britain and France were the leaders of the League of Nations, but both wanted to avoid another war. The USA was focused on the Great Depression and wanted to avoid foreign affairs. Japan, Italy, and Germany aggressively expanded in Africa, Asia, and Europe. In 1936, Germany, Italy, and Japan formed an alliance called the Axis Coalition. In 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria in order to seize its iron and coal mines. In 1937, Japan conquered northern China and killed 300,000 unarmed soldiers and civilians during the rape of Nanjing. In 1935, Mussolini began his campaign to create an Italian empire by invading Ethiopia. The Italian army easily defeated the Ethiopians. Critical thinking decision number 1. The League of Nations condemned Japanese and Italian aggression, but did nothing to stop the attacks in an effort to maintain peace in the world. The failure of the League of Nations to stop Italy or Japan encouraged Hitler to expand Germany too. In 1935, Hitler defied the terms of the Treaty of Versailles and expanded the size of the German military. In 1936, Hitler moved his army to the Rhineland. The Rhineland was previously demilitarized in a space between Germany and France. Both times, the League of Nations refused to stop Hitler in order to keep peace in Europe. In 1938, Hitler annexed Austria. Next, Hitler demanded that the western border of Czechoslovakia an area known as the Sudetenland be given to Germany. Critical thinking decision number 2. The 1938 leaders from England and France met with Hitler and Mussolini at the Munich Conference in order to work out an agreement to avoid war. Germany was allowed to keep the Sudetenland if Hitler promised to stop expanding. Britain and France used appeasement with Hitler. They gave in to his demands in order to avoid war. Six months after the Munich Conference, Hitler broke his promise and annexed all of Czechoslovakia. In 1939, Hitler demanded that Western Poland be returned to Germany, but he did not want to provoke a war with the Soviet Union. Stalin and Hitler agreed to the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact, promising never to attack each other. Secretly, Germany and the USSR agreed to divide Poland. On September 1st, 1939, Hitler ordered the German military to attack Poland. Critical thinking decision number 3. On September 3rd, 1939, Britain and France declared war on Germany. World War II had begun. World War II was a two-theater war, with fighting taking place in Europe and in the Pacific. The Allies and Axis powers converted to total war for the second time in 20 years. When World War II began, Germany used a lightning war strategy called blitzkrieg that relied on fast, strong attacks using air raids, artillery, and tanks. By 1940, Germany conquered Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. When France fell to the Nazis, Britain was the only nation at war with Germany. In 1940, Germany began a massive bombing campaign using its air force called the Battle of Britain. The British Air Force fought German planes aided by radar and the ability to crack German codes. Prime Minister Winston Churchill vowed that the British would never surrender. After 8 months, Hitler called off the attacks and focused on Eastern Europe. The United States vowed to remain neutral when World War II began. After the fall of France and attack on Britain, the U.S. began selling war supplies to the Allied powers. In 1940, Italian and German troops moved to take control of North Africa. Meanwhile, Hitler took control of the Balkans. In 1941, Hitler broke the Nazi-Soviet pact and invaded the Soviet Union. By 1942, the Axis powers controlled most of Europe and North Africa, but were unable to defeat Britain and the USSR. Meanwhile, the Japanese were expanding throughout the Pacific. From 1939 to 1941, Japan conquered European colonies in Asia, including French Indochina. Japan threatened to take the U.S. colonies of Guam and the Philippines. Critical thinking decision number 4. How should the United States respond? In 1941, the United States cut off sales of iron and oil with the Japanese. Japan interpreted the embargo as interfering with their right to expand. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. The surprise attack crippled the U.S. Navy and killed 2,300 Americans. After the attack, the USA declared war on the Axis powers and entered World War II. After Pearl Harbor, the Japanese took the Philippines and threatened to take India and Australia. By 1942, Japan controlled a large empire in the Pacific, Asia for the Asiatics. From 1939 to 1942, the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan, dominated Europe, North Africa, and Asia. But 1942 was a turning point year for the Allies, who were able to win the war by 1945.